Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel again. And I'm KJ. I'm a registered psychotherapist, and the show is called Transparent. And my guest today is Sarah Notenboom. Did I say that right?
You did. You did.
Perfect.
I'm
Good.
impressed.
I should know how to say it by now because we've known each other for a few years. We worked at an agency in Brampton, counseling. And
Mm-hmm.
so I wanted to be able to certainly invite you onto the show because you have some really good experience, a great perspective, and I wanted to be able to open up this platform for you to share your experience both personally and professionally. So Sarah, why don't you talk a little bit about your practice and who your clientele are?
I'm a registered psychotherapist, primarily working with individuals, couples, and families. I work primarily with the adult population, although I do see some teens in my practice, but they typically are 16 plus.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find that my practice is balanced between women and men. I particularly like working in the area of helping individuals heal from childhood abuse. So whether that be verbal, emotional, physical, or sexual abuse, that tends to be where my practice focus lies.
Okay, so a lot of trauma work then.
Yeah, a lot of trauma work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and good. So you're in Port Credit, right?
I am. Yeah, right down by the water.
Wonderful. That's a beautiful place to be.
It is. I feel very fortunate to be
Yeah,
here.
a nice place for your clients to maybe even go to the marina afterwards and get a cup of coffee and take a walk.
Yeah, exactly. Many do. So,
Yeah,
and I do that too when I'm done my day of work.
it's part of the therapeutic process, right?
That's right. That's
Good.
right. Time to
Very
reflect.
good.
Yeah.
And so, I would like to first start with how you are handling this experience personally and what you're noticing for yourself, and then talking about it on a more professional level with your clients.
Mm-hmm.
So you have some unique challenges in your life as well too, Sarah. So if you
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't mind speaking a little bit about that and how that is playing an impact with, the quarantine is certainly impacting all of us in very unique ways because we all have a different story to tell.
I have mild cerebral palsy. It's been something that I've had since I was born. Well, it essentially happened when I was born, like right after, due to a lack of oxygen to the brain. So I use a wheelchair to get around, and my walking is limited. So I do use canes to walk, but it's a limited kind of ability to do that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's my experience in quarantine has been, it's getting, increasingly, I would say, more frustrating. At the beginning, I was kind of like, okay, I welcome this as a bit of a reprieve from my very busy schedule, and now that we're about a month and a half into it, I'm feeling a
Big
little bit,
sick.
yeah, like I'm starting to feel the impacts of wanting to get back to my regular life.
Yeah.
And then kind of sitting with the idea of, like, do we know what life is really going to look like after? Is it going to go back to regular life?
Hmm.
And then not really having that the certainty as to when we're going to be out of this kind of frozen state. So yeah, it's been interesting. I'm doing my best to cope, and I'm fortunate because I have some family around me, so that's good.
Hmm.
But
And
yeah,
did you just get engaged too?
I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
wonderful news.
Thank you.
So you're living with where you like living as far as accommodation is concerned, and like what is that like? Are you living with other people? Are you living single? Because a lot of people that watch the show, they're living alone and they're trying to find out or trying to figure out like what's the best strategies here, living alone or living with other people. They both offer a unique set of challenges, don't they?
So I'm temporarily staying with my future in-laws and my fiance,
Yeah.
because I don't feel that it's safe for me to go around my family, just given that I have people who are a little bit older in my family. I have an aunt who lives next door to my home
Okay.
who's in her 90s, so I don't feel like it's okay for me to go home at this point. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about the people who do live alone and the struggle of that. I mean, I I think video conferencing is great, and I think that it does a lot to break isolation, but we all need that we need touch, and we need to be connected in that way. So uh, yeah, it's definitely challenging, and I'm seeing that in a lot of my clients as well who do live alone, and the upsurgence of grief and the trauma of this and how it's taking its hold.
Yeah, we had spoken earlier on the phone about the concept of grief, and I really would love to explore that a little bit more as well too. And you talked about vulnerability and
Mm-hmm.
how your personal experience is now just more perhaps becoming more an insight that other people are experiencing for the first time.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so we're in this kind of collective state of vulnerability, right? We're all, thrust into this where we didn't have a choice. We don't
Yeah.
have a choice. We have to abide by social distancing, and we've effectively been, in many ways, disconnected from our sense of autonomy and our sense of connection. And so, what I'm noticing in a lot of my clients is that there's a lot of resurrected grief coming up,
Mm, wow.
and then the kind of natural tendency to want to go toward one another for soothing. We can't do
Yeah,
that, and
that's
so we're
not
in
an
this.
option.
Sorry,
It's not an option.
it's not an option. So yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
seeing that kind of, how do we sit with that and the tension of this, and then this increased sense of powerlessness that comes with that, and fear,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how are you helping your clients? I mean, I know every client is different, so I can't really make the broad statement. So what's the fix for everybody? But what are you trying to do, generally speaking, with your clients to help them? Some of the tactics, some of the strategies that can be
Mhm.
helpful.
So I'm finding doing a lot of parts work with people. So drawing a lot from the internal family systems model has been really, really helpful in terms of really highlighting, okay, what are the different parts that are existing? What are the different emotions that are coming up? And then what do those parts of you need? How can we tend to them, soothe them? So doing a lot of safe place visualization exercises, for example.
Okay.
So I've been doing a lot of that, I would say, across the board. And that wasn't something that I would have done necessarily before with my in-person practice,
Yeah.
because I typically use a lot of empty chair work in my in-person practice.
Hmm.
But having to adapt, I had just done a training in IFS, so it was very timely. And then in terms of helping people come to a place of kind of external security, really looking at, okay, what are the things that you're already doing, right, that were helpful, and then how can we increase soothing? How can we also, because the other piece that I'm finding is that a lot of people are in this tension between, I need to be productive,
Mm,
and yet I don't feel like I can be.
yeah.
I'm not motivated. And so where can we exercise and practice some self-compassion in that, right? Can we tune in to what we really need, pay attention to our internal signals that let us know where we are emotionally? And sometimes it is to be productive, right? Sometimes having an activity that we can do that's contained and can help us feel like, okay, I have a sense of control here, that can be helpful. Other times it's about wrapping yourself in a blanket and having a cup of tea and listening to some nice music or something like that.
Yeah. It sounds like you're saying really just give ourselves permission to
Yeah,
not get overwhelmed with expectations.
right.
And I like the idea of the compartmentalizing. If you have a family, a- and I just go back to, there are so many different unique challenges, but if you have a family and they are in a very close quarters and you have no space to go, then what do they do? Where do they go in order to get that alone space time that they might need, that separation? Because
Hmm.
we are funny as humans. We need both people, but we also need our separation too, don't we?
Yeah, we do. autonomy and connection, right? Those two pieces have to coexist all the time.
Yeah.
And I know for myself, something that's been really helpful is going for drives. So time in the car, it's been
Yeah.
really, really good. Just in terms of my partner and I as well, just for us to have alone time to connect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Could you go back and talk a little bit more about the concept of vulnerability and I mean, through your experience in being in a wheelchair, you said you had perhaps a more heightened awareness of your vulnerability or of your need for other people, and perhaps in some ways, do you think that this quarantine is slapping us in the face or
Mm.
causing us to realize we really do need, we cannot be these completely autonomous creatures?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, I've said for a long time that being a wheelchair user, um, I wear my vulnerability, right? Like everybody, they see the wheelchair first, typically, they don't see me. Um, so I live in this really interesting place where I have to fight to be seen as a full human being and not just someone who is disabled,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, I think so. I think now we're in this collective state of vulnerability, and I think it's hard to integrate that understanding that we're all inherently vulnerable, right? And there's a fragility that comes with being human that I think we're all starting to see and to sit in, and that we actually do need people, and that we are dependent on our connections. That the healthiest person is kind of finding that balance again between that autonomy and connection, right?
Yeah.
We need to be able to be authentic and expressive in who we are, but then connected and have fulfilling relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, and I say that with the recognition that, for some of us, based on our experiences that we've had, that may not feel the safest always. So I do recognize that. I do want to hold that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you've perhaps grown up or become accustomed to, no, I just take care of myself.
Hmm.
And
Which is, yeah. And I mean, that's an adaptive response, right?
yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off. I
No,
apologize.
no, no, please do. Continue.
Yeah. I mean, that's where I wanted to kind of put that little word in, just to recognize that for a lot of us, being completely self-sufficient, independent, that doesn't come from nowhere, right? That comes from, I need to survive and protect myself.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a good thought. So what advice then would you offer for people that maybe you're on the fence looking around saying, am I safe? Is it okay for me to reach out to other people? Or maybe it's better off if I just try to get through this quarantine thing by myself.
Hmm. So I think really going through what does safety mean to me, right? What do I need to see in somebody to let me know that they might be safe? And then taking little risks at a time, right? We're not going to dive fully in, but we're going to see, like, okay, can this person kind of hold me in the way that I need to be held emotionally? Okay, can I take another step toward closeness and intimacy,
Mm-hmm.
right? We do that gradually. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, I often use the concept of the beach and the beach
Mm.
metaphor. When we go into the water, we don't run straight in. We test the water out. We go in a little bit deeper if we perceive that it's safe, if the temperature is good, if we don't see any jellyfish or any sharks, then we'll go in a little bit deeper. We
Yeah.
want to be in the water because we perceive that the water is a wonderful place to be.
Mhm.
Not really sure if it's safe.
Mhm.
And if at any point we do perceive that there's some danger, we might just run back on the shore.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that metaphor. I hadn't heard that before, and I think that's wonderful way to explain it.
you're free to use it anytime you want.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's kind of the truth of counseling is we borrow and steal from everybody anyway, so don't worry about it. I probably stole it from somebody else, or from me, borrowed it from somebody else.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. without giving them any credit.
Yeah.
Um, as we begin to wrap up, then just a few things to discuss. What do you think overall, Sarah? What do you think we're going to kind of take out of this collectively as a society? Like, what are the lessons that I think there can be so many different lessons, but what do you think is going to be meaningful for you, and maybe what your hope is, at least, that society will take away from this pause, right? This collective pause.
Yeah. I hope the power of connection and the importance of that, to slow down. I think even for me, that's been just kind of, it's given me an opportunity to refocus on what's important. And I think we all need a little bit of that, right? We live in a very productive, productivity driven society.
Yeah.
And so, we are primarily focused on work a lot of the time. And I think we're suffering as a result of that. And I think that this has been, in some ways, I wish it wasn't, with the conditions that it is, but that this is needed for us to kind of reset, refocus.
Yeah.
And I think the other piece of it too is the gratitude for the things that we take for granted. How often do we take for granted that we could just step out the door, go for dinner and meet with our friends, right? That's not something that I think any of us will ever take for granted again now.
Yeah. Yeah, and you had alluded to the concept of grief, and talking with some other people about it, I think that we are grieving the loss of some of those freedoms that we've become accustomed to, and they've been taken away, and we're in the different stages of grief over that.
Yes, I would 100% agree with that. I see that in myself, right? And like, oh, it's gonna be fine. We're gonna get back to normal no time, and then the sadness of it, the anger of it, and like, and then I think the consumption of media around it, around COVID, I think has become our way of trying to maintain a sense of control. But I
Mm.
think what's happening is that now it's sending people into, we're consuming too much. So now we're moving into this place of anxiety and panic and powerlessness. And then that reinforces this idea of like, I need to do something, I need to be productive, and now I feel stuck. And so now I feel like I can't do anything, and and then here we go into this collective kind of traumatic state.
There is this saying, knowledge is power.
Mm,
But when we start filling our minds with all of the knowledge of the news about the reporting about that, it ends up making us feel powerless, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah. I think there's a threshold, right? Like there's a certain point where it's like, yeah, okay, this is too much. And I think we need to be mindful of our own internal signals to let us know when we've reached that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my children, they'll roll their eyes at me when I'm watching another Donald Trump video, and perhaps just trying to figure out what's going on in the world and understand that. But yeah, you're right. There's a limit to the amount, when I think there's a tipping point where it really is not helping.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
doing more harm than good.
Yeah, I mean, a big encouragement that I've had for a lot of my clients is really being mindful of where you're getting your news source, right?
Yeah.
How often are you viewing that? Having CP24 on in the background all day, maybe not the best way of
Yeah.
getting our information.
Yeah, that's
Right?
true. That's
So be
true.
mindful of that.
So what would your advice be then in gathering information? What do you think is a healthy way of doing it?
So finding a news source that you can trust,
Yeah.
right? And then, like I said, paying attention to what's going on internally, looking at maybe putting a limit on how many times a day you allow yourself to view,
Yeah.
and then
And maybe
noticing,
even the time that you view it.
and the time that you view it, yeah. And really asking yourself, like, when you have that urge to want to view the news, like, where is that coming from? Is this anxiety? Is there another way that I can cope with this anxiety right
That's
now?
good.
Can
Yeah.
I do a soothing activity that's going to help me in a different way?
Right.
Right? Because
So
my assumption in that is that there's a need for control in that moment.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that leads me to another good or question that soothing. Let's talk just briefly then about soothing and some strategies then for soothing, because
Mm,
we want the viewers to be able to have some tools then to be able to take with them. So what might be some tools that you found helpful for yourself or for your clients that they've
mhm,
been doing to feel better?
mhm. So hand on the heart, I think is a really, really big one.
Yeah,
I do that with a lot of my clients, the soothing touch and um, breathing, mindful breathing as you're doing that.
yeah,
The other one that I've really found really helpful for a lot of people and for myself is thinking about an ideal compassionate figure, right? So whether that's somebody that you know or somebody that you've imagined and how they might respond to you when you notice different parts of you coming up. So if there's an anxious part, a fear part, right? What does that part need and how can we talk to it in a way that could be soothing?
okay,
Yeah.
okay, good,
But my encouragement is always to, if we can't go to that more cognitive way,
yeah,
right, is to go to the body first. So doing breathing exercises first and foremost, meditative practice if that's something that feels comfortable for you.
okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
This has really been helpful. Do you have a thought, a quote, something, a favorite story, a poem,
Mhm.
something for
Um
us?
yeah, so the quote that I keep on my professional Facebook page is "We're all just walking each other home"
Yeah,
by Ram Dass. And for me, I don't, I had to do some thinking as to why that quote has been so resonant for me. And I think for me, it represents the connectedness among all of us and the idea that through each other, we find our way home to ourselves.
yeah,
And so, yeah, I really just like that idea of the common humanity piece, right? And the fact that our imperfection, our struggle, that's all of us. That is what it is to be human, right? And I think we can forget that a lot of the time.
right.
So, yeah.
It's very compassionate thought too, that we're walking each other home.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, it's very. I imagine or envision a nice porch veranda, and we're walking each other to each other's verandas to sit
Mhm.
and chill and have some iced tea and relax and feel good.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Yes, won't that be great? Won't,
Once we can do that again.
when we can actually physically do that again. Yeah, that'd
Yeah.
be wonderful. Good stuff. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you. I appreciate your perspective and your wisdom and your experience. And this has been really good. And so I'm going to post this. And uh, before we go out, how can people get a hold of you? How can people find you on this lovely interweb, the World Wide
Mhm.
Web that we have, so that they can, if they can contact you?
Mhm. So a lot of all my information is on my website, which is sarahnotenboom.com.
Yep,
So
I'll post that in the bio.
perfect, perfect. Yeah, because I know my last name can be a little bit tricky to spell. And then I'm on Instagram as well under Sarah Notenboom Therapy, as well as Facebook. So I do try to update my Instagram every day with just musings on what it is to be human and to struggle. And so I'm hopeful that it can be helpful. It isn't a replacement for therapy, but it's something hopefully to bring us all together and to form a sense of community.
Great. So I'll
Yeah,
post all of that in the bio, and people will be able to find you there. And
perfect.
until we meet again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate you. And stay safe, and
Yes,
your family stay safe as well too. And all the best to you. Okay.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Bye.
And then I'm done. So I'll just cut it off at that point. And
Perfect.
yeah,
How was that?
that was great. That was a
Yeah,
nice conversation. I don't know how long it was, but it was probably about 25 minutes. Perfect
yeah,
time.
excellent.
We hit it out of the park. Good
Yeah,
job.
I could definitely do that longer. You're
I
right.
know, eh? Like it's really easy.
Yeah,
It's like you're on the horse trying to, okay, do I pull back? How much do I pull back here?
I
How much
know.
do I give? Yeah. And because there's a wide audience, I think we're going to be pastors, therapists, and just normal everyday people. So you threw in some really good technical stuff, which I love, and I think that would be some good insight for the therapist, as well as some
Mm,
really good practical stuff just for the layman as well too. So, yeah,
good. I'm
lots of
glad.
good stuff there, Sarah.
Hmm. I'm
Great.
so glad.
So I
Thank
will
you for